calling to order. Welcome to meeting number 73 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Official Languages. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083 and the motion adopted by the committee on September 20th, 2023, the committee is meeting to resume its study on the economic development of official language minority communities. Once again, I will skip the Zoom instructions because our witnesses are here in person. For parliamentarians, all I would say is that if you are speaking in a microphone, keep your earpiece as far away from the microphone as possible because it can cause feedback that harms our interpreters and technicians. I'd like to wish a welcome to the officials from the Ministry of Industry. I would like to welcome you. You haven't been here in at least 7 years, I would say. We have Etienne René Massy, Assistant Deputy Minister of Small Business and Marketplace Services, Casey McMicking, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister for Innovation Strategy and Policy Sector, and Marie-Caroline Badjek, Acting Director, Innovation Strategies and Policy Sector. The way it works is that you have 5 minutes to give your presentation. I think it's Ms. McMing who will be giving it. I'm very strict on the 5 minutes, and after that there will be rounds of questions. And I'm strict on time because I want to give as much time as possible for the various parties to ask questions. I know that I speak quite quickly. I'll try to slow down for our interpreters. But Ms. McMicking, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished members of the committee. I will speak very quickly. In any case, I'd like to begin by pointing out that the territory on which we are meeting belongs to the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee to talk about how ISED supports the economic development of official language minority communities, or OLMCs. Nearly 2 million Canadians belong to OLMCs, and across the country there are more than 123,000 businesses where at least 50% of the owners have the minority official language as their first official language spoken. I would like to emphasize that although ISED works in collaboration with the regional development agencies, my intervention today is limited to the activities of my department. As far as ISED is concerned, I'd like to start by introducing you to the Economic Development Initiative, or EDI. The EDI is one of the funds renewed under the new Action Plan for Official Languages 2023-2028. The EDI has a total budget of $30.5 million over 5 years. Funding is divided between ISED, which receives $1.6 million in operating funds, and the regional development agencies, which administer financial contributions. ISED is responsible for national coordination and for facilitating discussions between agencies on priorities and planning. It is also responsible for conducting economic research and policy analysis to better understand the economic needs of OLMCs. The research component, implemented by ISED, focuses on the acquisition of knowledge and data that contribute to capacity building and partnership development, and inform federal policies, programs, and services. Between 2018 and 2023, nearly 40 studies or analyses were carried out in collaboration with various stakeholders. For example, in 2019, the department commissioned Statistics Canada to develop a methodology to identify businesses that may be associated with official language minorities. Prior to this study, there was no clear picture of the characteristics of OLMC owners and businesses at the national and regional levels. The first report on this research was produced in 2020. It shows that in 2017, 6.5% of the total number of small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in Canada were at least 50% owned by a person or persons whose first official language spoken is that of the official language minority in the province where the business is based. The report also shows that across Canada as a whole, compared to other business owners, official language minority business owners are slightly younger, slightly less likely to be women, and slightly more likely to be immigrants. Providing solid, useful statistical data at the national and regional levels for business-oriented decision-making and economic development in OLMCs remains an important objective of our research component. In 2023-2024, the department plans to continue the partnership with Statistics Canada to update the data that I have just presented with data from the 2021 census and provide an overview of investment in businesses owned by official language minority owners in urban and rural areas.
ISED has also held consultations with OLMCs to understand their issues and immediate needs to better align our policies, programs, and services, and to inform the EDI research component. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we consulted virtually through 6 sessions with hundreds of stakeholders, 3 in French and 3 in English, to better understand the impact of COVID-19 on community economic development, the tourism industry, and to share best practices. EDI has been in place for 15 years. ISED coordinates through committees, 1 English, 1 French, that include representatives from OLMCs and through an interdepartmental federal working group that meets regularly to discuss all aspects of delivery of the initiative. Excuse-moi.
It's another 15 minutes if you can, and you can. Yeah, 15 seconds. Yeah.
Excuse me. A key component for addressing support to entrepreneurs has been the programming under the leadership of my colleague Etienne René, and that has been designed and delivered for women, Black, and 2SL LGBTQI+ entrepreneurs. Our official languages have been considered in the conception and the design of these programs, as well as the launch and ultimate delivery of the programming. And how they plan to provide services in both official languages was a factor in the ultimate selection of successful.
Thank you, Mrs. McMicken. Yes. You can continue further with through the questions and elaborate more if you want. So, thank you. La prochaine ronde de questions. So
the next rounds of questions.
Parties, 6 minutes each with interaction, and I'll be very, very strict on the time because I want a second round for everyone. So. On va commencer la première ronde de questions.
We'll start the first round of questioning with the first Vice Chair of the committee, Mr. Gaudin. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the representatives of the department for joining us today. The objective is to understand we are conducting this study to find tools so that businesses in OLMCs can be more prosperous, because what I understand is that it's thought that they need more support to develop their prosperity. Now, in the presentation that you made, Madame McMicking, you conducted a lot of studies and analyses, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of a business person. What is the process for those businesses to obtain government assistance, and is there government assistance specifically tailored to this type of business?
In fact, yes. So what I've described is what ISED's programming does in the context of the EDI program. So this is a $30.5 million over 5 years program that we actually work with our colleagues in the regional development agencies to implement, and that is directed very specifically towards OLMCs. So what I described was the ISED piece of this puzzle, which is quite a small but very important puzzle, because it is the mechanism by which we collaborate and work with the OLMCs to determine what it is that they need, as well as to collaborate with them to share best practices through engagement, for example. The programming piece of this is run through the regional development agencies, and I believe that our colleagues from ACOA and I believe SEDQ will be here to speak later on.
Merci.
Thank you. So what I've understood is that you work with the agencies in the 7 regions that have been defined. Now, the business addresses the agencies and not you. You coordinate the programs, and because if we do a search, the structure is quite complex. So can you tell us where is the one-stop shop that businesses turn to obtain financial assistance and support? And do you have specific sectors? There are programs that help tourism, for example, in more industry focused. Are there specific sectors, and are they tailored to each of the 7 regions? Because we know that this is a vast country that is very diverse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are basically 2 answers to the member's question. The first is with regards to the EDI piece of the program, and so the one-stop shop for each of them depends on which region in which they are located. The second question, the second piece of that answer is that there are also a variety of programs that exist. For example, the Black Entrepreneurship Program or the Women's Entrepreneurship Program that ISED conducts, that we ensure through the research work and through our partnership with my colleague Etienne, contains a lens that will ensure that official language minority communities' needs are applied in terms of the application to these programs. I think if I may, Mr. Chair, to just supplement how these programs work, I could turn to my colleague Etienne.
Donc, dans tout notre programme.
So in all our programming on entrepreneurship within the department, we require that recipients, because what we do is we give money to groups that are in communities in the provinces and territories, and they offer a variety of services to entrepreneurs, whether it's mentoring, sponsoring, training, and all of our recipients are required to offer services in both official languages of Canada. And in some of our projects, when we conduct an analysis, an evaluation of our projects, we ensure that OLMCs are part of this, and often there are partnerships between OLMC groups who work with our recipients. For specific sectors, not so much, because when we make a choice, we eliminate other sectors, so we try to go broadly. Thank you. Oh, my phone, you used recipients. Is it a lottery? Is it a draw? How do you allocate the budgetary envelopes? Well, when we receive funding and the government allocates funding for entrepreneurship, we try to do competitive calls for tender. We give a guide that explains what we're looking for, and then people are invited. There are consortiums or organizations that may submit applications that meet our criteria, and often it's not given to the entrepreneur directly, it's done indirectly. So we find a third party that will then work with entrepreneurs. For women, it's this women's strategy and so on. Thank you, Mr. Godin. That's about all the time you have. It goes very quickly, I know, but you can resume in the next round. The next question will be asked by our colleague, Angelo Iachino. You have 6 minutes. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us this afternoon. What role does ISED play in the economic development of OLMCs?
That was a very fast 6 minutes.
I'll let you repeat it a few times.
Please go right ahead. So in terms of the economic development of OLMCs, ISED itself, we play a couple of different roles. We play the direct funding role that Etienne has just described, as well as the research and data role, as well as the convening role that I described in my remarks earlier. So we effectively, what we're able to do through the convening, through the various events that we will hold with OLMCs, through the research that we conduct in partnership with them, we're able to determine better well, first of all, how OLMCs are actually comprised, but second of all, what is it that they are in need of at this particular point in time? And these things have shifted. So, for example, during the COVID-19 sessions that I described earlier, what we discovered were very specific things with regards to these entrepreneurs' needs with regards to labor mobility, for example, labor sources, issues with the tourism industry. So there are long-standing issues, and then there are the sort of evolutionary issues that we see over time. So our activity is to work with them to determine what their needs are.
Quelle initiative proposez-vous?
What initiatives do you propose to support OLMCs in rural areas, notably concerning the development of telecommunications services?
Mr. Chair, if it's all right, and Marie Gallon.
Absolutely.
Bonjour, Monsieur.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. In rural areas, in our work, one of the pieces of work that we do that is very important is about statistics data. So we need to have a better understanding of OLMCs in rural areas and what their needs are, both economic and infrastructure needs. So that is our priority this year, is to work with Statistics Canada on that data. But at the same time, we need to continue to work with our partners. Our partners, for example, are RD, which is joining you Monday, and so that they can tell you what rural regions need, rather. And as the ADM mentioned, we have monitoring committees, and there's regional development agencies that transfer knowledge, and we discuss what needs to be done for rural areas. So it's more strategic planning from our perspective. And what we have given priority to is statistics and Statistics Canada for data. How are you accessing post-secondary? How do post-secondary institutions access funding for digital research in OLMCs? Mr. Chair, I think we would need to get back to you for that question and to support, to consult our colleagues and research, but we can come back to you with an answer. And what initiative is your department establishing to follow and respect the Official Languages Act? So if I may, in the programming that we offer, whether it be the women's entrepreneurship strategy or the Black community, we have obligations that we integrate into our contracts. So we need to ensure that recipients offer services in both official languages to all recipients in order to access these services. Thank you. What are the main obstacles for OLMCs?
The main obstacles for participation, for economic participation, you're asking? I would say that there are a series of challenges that that the OLMCs face. Often this is regarding service access. They need to be able to find someone in their time slot that offers the service in the language that they speak. A business owner in an OLMC is an entrepreneur that often faces the same challenges as all other entrepreneurs. Through our programs, we seek to work with entrepreneurs. It's not the entrepreneurs that are doing really well that are contacting us, it's entrepreneurs that aren't doing so well. They are the ones who need support and services because they face discrimination, various obstacles. For example, this is true for Black people who have been discriminated against for a long time. We are offering these services to tear down these barriers. Often we're talking about access to capital here. We're talking about access to information, access to markets, and to be able to enter the supply chains of larger companies. Often, we see the same challenges arise in many entrepreneurs. Thank you, Mr. Iacono. Thank you, Mr. Massy. Next questions will come from the second vice chair of this committee, Mr. Mario Beaulieu. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, dear guests. You said at the start that StatsCan had a new mandate to identify businesses that represent OLMCs. Can we have access to the list of those businesses? Is that a public list? I can answer. The data that was used were taken from data banks in the census. I think that StatsCan has the list of businesses. I would refer the question to my colleagues in StatsCan, but it's from the 2017 census. That's what we took the data from. Okay. And if I understood properly, you're not directly funding businesses. You use certain programs. I'm interested in what you're using for Quebec. Our entrepreneurship program is based on using intermediaries. When we look at the digital option program, we worked with the Federation of the Chambers of Commerce of Quebec. We also use the CADC network in order to provide those services to small businesses in Quebec. When it comes to the women's entrepreneurship, however, for Quebec small businesses, but this was for English language small businesses. In this case, the FCCQ and the network provide services to the Anglophone community as well and to the French-speaking community in general overall across Quebec. The same is true for the entrepreneurship strategy. How do you share that funding? How do you allocate it? There are specific amounts for Francophones, and there are other amounts for Anglophones. There's not necessarily a budget that's allocated, but we need to gather data. When we provide funding to intermediaries, we ask them to give us data that is based on gender, that is broken down based on various diverse communities across Canada. There are also reporting requirements for how many people in OLMCs were provided services. With that data, we can conduct the assessments and we can see whether the services are reaching OLMCs. Is there a way of knowing, for example, which business was able to get funding from which program regarding in OLMCs specifically in Quebec? You would have to ask the intermediaries to provide that information. I would also have to verify if there's the study clause that we compel all intermediaries to sign, if that has that information. Do you have that list, and can you send it to us? The list of intermediaries, no problem. It's all on our website, so we can send you all that, so we can have access to it. Great. You said that there are communities with OLMC representatives on. I believe I heard of these committees. I was wondering, who are the Quebec OLMC representatives? I don't have the full list, but for example, the Community Economic Development is part of that, and they were there on Monday. There is also Youth Employment Services. When it comes to the committee has Francophone partners and Anglophone partners. We can provide the list if you wish. Good. StatsCan sent us the lead statistician, and the statistician said that he reports to your department, does that mean that you are the ones who are making the decisions when it comes to what indicators to look for, to what kind of information is shared? In this case, it was with regard to rights holders that we're waiting for an authorization from the department to do certain things. Can one of you provide a bit more information on this process? Today, no. Our work is very specific. It is with regard to implementing economic development initiatives. With regard to right holders, that is not our sector, but we can transfer that question to somebody else who has that portfolio if you have specific questions about it. I was just asking myself the question because there's a new approach undertaken by Bill C-13 and that we heard from in the ministers in their statements, and it is to protect French in Quebec. Is there something in the budget envelope for official languages that is different and that would provide something more for French speakers? Language communities' vitality depends on their economic development. That was, thank you, Mr. Boudier. That was a great start to a question. The answer will have to wait. Your 6 minutes is up. Ms. Matheson, by the way, before giving the floor over to Ms. Matheson, any additional information that you can give us in order to better supplement your responses can be sent to the clerk. The clerk will then transfer that information to all committee members. Ms. Matheson, welcome to our committee. I know this is a first for you. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the witnesses. I'd like to ask a little bit more about the EDI that you had talked about. You spoke about the fact that those numbers are still fairly low with immigrant families, with women in particular. So I wanted to ask about the lack of French childcare options in Francophone communities. How have you spoken to a lot of these entrepreneurs on how that limits their ability to build those businesses, innovate, and in terms of that economic development as well?
So in the conversation we had last fall, some of the priorities that were put forward around demographics were more around aging population and youth migration, also succession planning. So those were the things that were brought up to us in the context of the EDI. That does not mean that childcare and access to education services in official language, the minority official language, is not an issue. But in terms of our discussion, they were quite focused, and those are the things that came up from a demographic perspective. So again, aging population, youth migration, succession planning, labor shortages. So that's what we heard last fall.
So you don't look at a lot of those other supports that ultimately would go into helping some of these groups access or take better advantage of the businesses that they want to build in those sort of social ways? You don't look at that at all?
No, it's more, the EDI is part of the official language action plan. So we're just one small part of a whole of government initiative.
Okay.
So there's PCH, ESDC. So we're all like under that big plan that was renewed every 5 years, but announced in April 2023. So we keep our focus in terms of our departmental mandate. Of course, we as part of PCH, we report back to PCH. We have to report every year to PCH. And so we are aware of like what others are doing, and there's good collaboration, interdepartmental one. But again, we stay within our mandate in terms of the focus of our activities, but with an understanding of what's happening. But just to be clear, like the EDI is part of the official language plan at large, so there's a lot under there,
Right.
which deals with childcare and all those issues.
Okay. In terms of a lot of what I've heard from business owners in general, of course, is the time that it takes for them to take away from what they're desperately trying to put together. They're very, very busy in terms of those businesses. It consumes so much of their life. So to be given or to try and carve out some extra time to be able to apply for a lot of these programs is very, very difficult. I heard that a lot when I was working on the trade file, just to try to access. So how are you helping these businesses and these people do that? Is the application process has it been more streamlined over the years? Could you explain a bit of that?
So I can speak to the entrepreneurship programming that we have in the department. So we do hear, like, entrepreneurs are busy people. They're problem solvers on an ongoing basis. So we work, like, our intermediaries sort of provide a range of services and a different level of engagement with the entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur can sometimes come and get quick hits, or they can get more in-depth sort of services that are there. So the ecosystem providers, like if it's a Futurepreneur or if it's an organization like the Black Business Professionals Association, they will try to tailor their program to make it easy for entrepreneurs, which is why we believe that intermediaries are so key in the delivery of our services. Because these intermediaries, this is their business. They are there to support entrepreneurs. They are there to work with entrepreneurs. So they know what entrepreneurs want. They know how they want it, and they know when they want it. So that's why we fund these organizations, because they are the best place to work with the entrepreneurs to help them develop their project.
Okay, so those intermediaries, and forgive my ignorance on it, but those intermediaries, they take the entire pot of funding, and then they decide who receives it and how it's received, or is it a separate amount of money that you provide them, and that's not indicative of what then those businesses get?
So the programming that I'm talking about is their entrepreneurship programming, which is over and above the official minority language programming that we have in the department.
So it's separate.
It's separate, and it's generalized to the population. What we do is we try to enable organizations to help businesses through provision of free services and supports. So we don't necessarily do a direct contribution to a business or even an indirect contribution, financial contribution to the business.
Right.
We do a range of services that help that entrepreneur build out their project.
Through that programming.
Be it WES or BEP or Futurepreneur.
30 seconds.
Oh, well then, it is a fast 6 minutes. All right.
6 minutes, and may I just add one additional thing to what Etienne was just saying to the member with regards to what our shop does, Marie, Caroline, and I. We are essentially, apart from doing research and coordination, we are kind of the one-stop shop for coordinating feedback with regards to how the EDI program itself operates throughout the country. So we are quite conscious of the issues for entrepreneurs in all parts of the country and in all ways with regards to capacity. So what we try to do is work with our collaborators in other departments to make the processes as simple as possible using the feedback that we hear from entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Mrs. Matheson and Mrs. McMicking. Second round of questions. We'll start with Fort McMurray. So, Mrs. Goodrich, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Merci. C'est pas aussi.
Thank you. It's not as cold as it is out here today. I would just like to say by starting, the economic diversification in Western Canada was divided up for 2 different agencies, PerCan and Pacific Can. So how would it change how the funding is spent? Up to date, funding under the EDIs was granted based on population. I think that could continue, but that is why the Assistant Deputy Minister said it. This hence the importance of having the agencies here today, because they could talk to you more about how those resources are shared. Up to date, the EDI is based on population, but their witnesses later will be able to talk a bit more about that. Is it divvied up based on the number of French speakers or based on the general population number? I would ask you to ask that question to our colleagues who will be there in the next hour. They will be able to talk in depth about how the funding is allocated. Can you provide a few examples of projects or economic development programs that have been success stories in OLMCs? Can you I'm here talking about programs that were projects that were supported by these initiatives. Once more, to answer your question and to not take away from what my colleagues later will say, the agencies will be able to provide you examples of projects. One example that I can give you for our team under ISED is financing for a research project regarding strategic planification. For example, there was a white paper for 2023, and it was funded by ISED. So that's the kind of project that our team funds, and it helps with strategic planning, and it helps assess what needs communities need. And that's the kind of project that ISED funds. But once more, the agencies will be able to tell you more about that because they are on the ground. Thank you. Bilingualism is important from an economic point of view. To what extent is it important for the economy at the national level and at the international level? I don't have any data to answer that question with me today. Can you send the committee this information? We have very little time, so if you don't have that.
Languages to the committee, or one of the languages, and the clerk can share. Just because my time is very quickly running out. One of the big things that I've heard very clearly from language communities is the importance of having buy-in for, and that it's not an Anglophone community that can do the work in both languages, but it's a Francophone community that is serving the Francophone community. And you kind of clearly, or you were talking about the fact that you hire agencies to spend the money. So how exactly do you guys make sure that the money is spent exactly on how you want it?
Sure. So in our entrepreneurship programming, the contribution agreement spells out a range of reporting requirements. So the quarterly claims come in and annual reports come in, which allow our officers to do a paper review. Then we do have sort of ongoing engagement with our recipients on an ongoing basis. So those are phone calls and regular meetings to get an understanding of what the challenges, what the opportunities are. And we will often bring together the recipients under an initiative. So, for example, the Black Entrepreneurship Initiative, the Knowledge Hub, which is at Carleton, will bring together all of the ecosystem recipients together for information exchange, learning, lessons, best practices. And we are there sort of talking with them directly during the meeting and in the hallways as well, to try to better understand the issues. And the reporting is the ultimate sort of, they have to account for the number of services and the diversity of the clients they have, and that gives us a full accounting.
Sorry, Mrs. Goodrich, it's all the time you have for now. Maintenant, merci. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. So the next question will come from the region of North Bay. Mr. Seri, you have the floor. It's more like Nipissing. Greater Sudbury, it's the entire region, really. It's a beautiful region nonetheless. Thank you to our panelists for being here today with us, the work that you're doing, and for the work that you're doing at the apartment. My first question, you spoke earlier, Ms. McMicking and Mr. Massey, about consultations that you held a few years ago. You mentioned access to capital as an issue, access to markets. Is there a formal report? Because we're here to make recommendations to move forward. Is there a formal report stemming from the consultations that you could submit to the committee that our analysts and committee members could draw inspiration from for our recommendations? In one word, yes. Concerning our series of dialogues, the answer is yes. Yes. Thank you. If you could pass that in writing, that would be great. My other question. When we talk, well, we heard about consultations on the action plan for official languages. A number of OLMCs across the country, they want the federal government to play a significant role. But I'd like to ask a specific question. What role do you play with the provinces? What type of agreements? Because the provinces are also meeting their needs and the needs of Francophone communities in minority contexts. Do you have any formal agreements with the provinces? No. No, we don't have any formal agreements. However, the research that we carry out, well, I don't have an example for Ontario. Well, we know that these organizations, it's the communities themselves that will speak with their provincial governments and present the results. So it's the concept of by and for. But we don't have any agreements on formally on our team with the provinces. Mr. Iaconu mentioned, and you also mentioned, about the by, for, and with versus bilingual organizations. Do you have formal criteria on practices and concepts that require or that you work with organizations by, for, and with for bilingual groups? In our calls for tender, when there is funding, our guides refer to our expectations for offering services to entrepreneurs in OLMC situations. So we certainly have guides that provide information, and we conduct an evaluation on the basis of the answers of people who send us proposals to ensure that there are official language components. Any funding applicant, when we look at the entrepreneurship program, if the applicant says, well, we won't offer service in the second official language, well, the assessment is over. It's not long, because that's a requirement that we have in our work. Thank you for that. You also indicated that for your department is working with Statistics Canada. We've heard many times that there was a shortage of training on OLMCs across the country, and you alluded earlier, Ms. McMicking, that there was a report by Statistics Canada, and you will do a follow-up with them. My concern is what type of questions are being asked, and because we would like to see the types of questions to ensure that we can once again make recommendations directly to Statistics Canada to see whether there are other questions specific to you. And what is the date of the next consultation? Because if we look 5 or 10 years back, we're always behind. So what are the questions that will be asked, and what is the date of the next census? In under 20 seconds. We are negotiating the new mandate, so unfortunately I can't send you the mandate because we are literally negotiating it right now. And what we hope is that we hope to have a 2-year agreement to reproduce the data that we deem is important based on our consultations with OLMCs in urban and rural regions, and to put that up to date. Perhaps by the end of your study we'll have an answer, but I just currently we are negotiating the mandate. Thank you very much. And in 80%, in Ontario, 80% of Statistics Canada employees are in bilingual positions. Mr. Beaulieu, you have the floor for 2 minutes. I will pick up my question. Since 2020, in the new legislation, the government recognizes that Francophones in Quebec are a minority in Canada and in North America, and that it has a responsibility to protect French? To your knowledge, in the Action Plan on Official Languages 2023-2028, is there money allocated for economic development of Francophone communities in Quebec specifically?
So I can't speak, to be honest, with regards to kind of the entirety of the action plan. That is a very large amount of money cut across a very large number of departments. So I can't speak for those departments. The EDI initiative that I described earlier and that our colleagues from the regional development agencies will speak to is part of that. So that's the $30.5 million over 5 years. So that is specifically for economic development in the sense of it is the work that we do with data evaluation, research, engagement.
It's not set out specifically for Francophone businesses in Quebec or economic development of the Francophone community in Quebec under the framework of the Action Plan on Official Languages. The initiative of the EDI is for OLMCs, so it is EDI, so it's English in Quebec. But once again, under the official action plan, there are a variety of departments working with the provinces. So if you wish to broaden the scope, then that would be worth looking at. When you say the first official language spoken, that includes newcomers who speak English. So is that the linguistic indicator that was chosen by Statistics Canada? But does that inflate the numbers in the case of Quebec when there are strategies specifically focused on newcomers who speak English or Anglophone? Doesn't that create discrimination? An excellent question, Mr. Beaulieu, but your time is up.
Very fast. Mrs. Matheson, for you. The floor is yours for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. So you had been talking about issues in terms of the labor market, right? Finding folks to work. That's consistent all over Canada and many communities. Are you and does your department work at all in ways to better inform overall government policies or what have you in terms of that Francophone immigration to address the needs of the minority Francophone communities and specifically those businesses that you're looking to support?
Thank you for that question. I would say that for us, we don't focus at our department, we aren't focusing specifically on Francophone immigration, but it is certainly an issue that we look into, that we are discussing with our partners. I would say you probably would be better off to ask that question of our partners at IRCC.
So you don't. So it's entirely siloed in terms of those conversations that you have. It's not shared. They don't take that information and learn from what you do.
Absolutely. So part of what we do is we actually serve as we described previously, a bit of a one-stop shop, both for the entrepreneurs, but also as part of the federal government, as part of the federal family. So we share information that we learn from the entrepreneurs that we speak to, from the groups that we speak to, with our colleagues in other departments. Very specific, although we are very specific to the economic development side rather than perhaps other issues.
But certainly that would inform, right, how successful the program is, so that information would be pretty keen in terms of sharing that, no?
Yeah, so at the working level, there are interdepartmental working groups that are led by Immigration RCC, and we are part of that. So so there's definitely, so we're not leading those, they're leading them, but we have, for example, my Director General, is part of one of those interdepartmental working group. So there is sharing of information, especially on those really important issues. It's just that it's not the focus of our work, but it's, of course, part of the discussion of labor shortages.
There are a lot of different vectors that we can share this type of information with the various departments that are engaged in these issues.
That's good.
Thank you, Mrs. Matheson. For the next questions, we'll be very short. So, Monsieur Généreux, pour 2 minutes.
Mr. Généreux, for 2 minutes, you have the floor. Thank you very much for joining us. The $30 million over 5 years, if I've understood correctly, what real proportion of that money goes to organizations after the administration fees, the program management fees are deducted, and within the organizations themselves, because they have administration fees as well, what is the percentage of the share of the amounts that they receive that is spent on administrative fees, and what amount remains at the end and goes truly to businesses and entrepreneurs?
That ISED spends, of that $30.5 million over 5 years, we spend 1.6 over 5 years. So our funding is very specific to operating. So our money does not go to entrepreneurs. However, when our colleagues from the regional development agencies are here to speak to you when we are finished, those would be the people I think that could probably answer your question.
What is the accountability currently? Is there accountability among all associations in Canada? Is that where, are they the ones that have to be accountable for the amounts given to entrepreneurs? If you would allow me, you want to know how the accountability works at the federal level or within businesses? Well, yes, because it's federal money. So when we have $30 million and that's dispersed to services, the businesses need to know that they're loans, not subsidies in the most cases. So what is the percentage on return on loans that were made? Do you have statistics on that? For the EDI, the last formal assessment that we had was in 2017, so we can share that assessment with you, which is available online. It is public. So we are always in consultation with our regional development agency partners to evaluate the program. But once again, the regional development agencies can tell you exactly how they manage their funding. But as an initiative, we are accountable to Heritage Canada every year. And so every year, all members of the EDI give reports and provide this overall information. Thank you very much. 2.5 minutes. Mr. Serré, you have 2.5 minutes as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to continue. As I mentioned earlier, on Statistics Canada in Ontario, it was the city of Sturgeon Falls where most employees come from, and that is the city in Ontario that had the first French high school in the 70s. And my ancestors have been developing the Francophonie in the region, and we have a good community in that area. So here is my question. For the regional economic development agencies, as you know, FedNor has a mandate in Northern Ontario, and they are very strong on Francophonie, on services in French. But do the economic development agencies themselves have are they allowed to decide whether they offer Francophone services, or do you have a type of protocol that you have as the Government of Canada to ensure that all economic development agencies are spending funding on the Francophonie in their region? Or is it up to them to decide whether or not to prioritize that?
Unfortunately, I would probably ask you to ask that question of the regional development agencies. But that being said, what I would say is that we are all subject to the Official Languages Act. And so they will be required to provide services under the Act. In terms of kind of how that all works and the mechanisms behind it and where they do, how they do, I think our colleagues from the RDAs would
so
be
I just
able
want to be clear. So we're going to ask that question to the agencies, but you as a department do not have a specific mandate given to all RDAs that they must offer French services. Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada is one department. Each of the RDAs are their own departments. They're independent of us, so we don't tell them what to do in any way, shape, or form. They are excellent partners of ours.
So we would have to ask the question to each of these 7 economic development agencies. Is that right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Massé, Madame Miss McMicking, and Miss Bajek. It was very interesting. We will suspend briefly to allow the new witnesses to arrive. We are suspended.
Resuming the study of the economic development of official language minority communities. We have both economic development agencies, the first time joining us for at least 7 years. We have representatives from the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, Mr. Daryl, because we have Daryl here and it's not written that way. Our Daryl is pretty special. Okay, we have Daryl Nolan here, Vice President, Policy Programs and Communication, and for the CED, the Economic Development Agency of Canada for the regions of Quebec, we have Sonie Perron, Deputy Minister. Welcome, gentlemen. Order in the room. Inaudible. The Liberals can't wait to get this started. The way we're going to do this is that we're going to give you 5 minutes each for your opening remarks. I am pretty strict on time. If you have no time to finish you can continue it during the answers to questions that you will be asked. We'll be starting with you, Mr. Nolan, from ACOA. Thank you, Chair, members of the Standing Committee on Official Language. My name is Daryl Nolan, and I'm the Vice President of Policy, Programs, and Communications at the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, or ACOA. I am pleased to join you in person here in Ottawa and respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Merci pour
you about what ACOA does on the ground with respect to official languages minority communities. Depuis plus de 35 ans,
for more than 35 years, the ACOA has been supporting Acadian and French-speaking businesses, organizations, and communities in the 4 Atlantic provinces. One of our greatest strengths is our presence throughout the Atlantic region.
Directly in offices located in over 30 communities around Atlantic Canada, ranging from our larger cities to small, rural, coastal, and remote communities. We're proud to be a leader in providing services to entrepreneurs and communities in both official languages. Our offices located in bilingual regions for language of work include all of our offices in New Brunswick, including our head office, which is in Moncton, as well, of course, as our small office we have here in Ottawa. We have established offices directly in Francophone and Acadian communities throughout the region. For example, Wellington, PEI, Pointe-d'Église, en Nouvelle-Écosse, Edmundston, Campbellton in New Brunswick. One way that ACOA successfully supports entrepreneurs in official language minority communities is by being more accessible and visible. That is why, wherever possible, our staff are co-located with other economic development organizations in these communities. This type of partnership allows for entrepreneurs in Acadian and Francophone communities in Atlantic Canada to be made aware of the full suite of programs that are available to them to help grow their businesses, and they can have that service in French. For example, in
the southwest region of Nova Scotia, 2 agency employees share offices with the Corporation for the Benefit of Community Development, the CBDC, the Economic and Development and Employability Network, the Nova Scotia Economic Development Council, and the Employment Services Centre, Nova Scotia at Work.
With these partners to identify priorities and opportunities that might exist, and they bring all of their services together in a bit of a one-stop shop. Through our regular programming, including the Business Development Program and the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program, the agency helps small and medium-sized businesses become more competitive, innovative, and productive. We also work with communities to identify growth opportunities and invest in initiatives that lead to long-term jobs through our Innovative Communities Fund. In
addition, in recent years, the agency has implemented the Economic Development Agency, a component of Canada's Action Plan for Official Languages 2018-2023.
$6.2 million over 5 years to support things like tourism, innovation, productivity improvement, market and trade development, Francophone immigration projects with Francophone and Acadian communities. Over the last 18 months, ACOA, in addition to the EDI, has approved 1,250 projects in Francophone communities for over $211 million. For example, we've done projects with La Société et Francophone de l'Île du Prince-Édouard, Horizon Économique de Terre-Neuve-Labrador to provide support for Francophone immigration services. En avril dernier, l'APK a également
Last April, ACOA also announced an investment of $1.6 million for the Impact Project, led by the 4 RDEs in the Atlantic, the Centre Québécois de Développement Durable, and RDE Canada. This project aims to increase the performance and competitiveness of businesses and organizations in French-speaking and Acadian communities in the Atlantic provinces by helping them better position themselves in the face of new market and societal expectations in terms of sustainability.
Creating more diversified and inclusive communities and solidifying economic development efforts that benefit all Atlantic Canadian communities. Monsieur le Président, membres du comité, je vous remercie de m'avoir donné.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about ACOA's role in the development of official language minority communities in Atlantic Canada.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Nolan. Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nolan. Mr. Perron, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sonia Perron. I am the Deputy Minister and President of my association. Thank you for inviting me to speak about the work done by Canada Economic Development to support the economic development of official language minority communities in Quebec.
Acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, and I would like to thank the member of the First Nation for welcoming us on their ancestral territory. DEC est l'agence de développement économique.
The CED is the Federal Regional Development Agency dedicated to Quebec, a province where the language issue is particularly important. This is true historically, but it's also reflected in the economic geography of each region. Taking this geography into account is crucial to the delivery of our mandate. That is what we do at SED, relying in particular on our ability to offer the services of our advisors in both official languages in every region of Quebec. In both official languages. CED's mission is to promote economic development in all regions of Quebec by supporting promising SME and community projects that will contribute to building sustainable, green, and inclusive growth. For us, it's clear that fulfilling this mandate requires the full participation of official language minority communities, and this contributes to Canada's economic vitality and to Canada's as well. The economic and entrepreneurial ecosystems of these communities are engines of innovation, productivity, job creation, and economic growth throughout Quebec.
Why SEDQ provides them with ongoing support through the delivery in Quebec of the Economic Development Initiative for Official Languages. Between 2018-19 and 22-23, SEDQ invested $8.7 million in the OLMCs through the Economic Development Initiative for Official Language. This led to implementation of projects, innovative project and entrepreneurship initiative, and the development of partnership that help to diversify economic activity of these communities everywhere in Quebec. Our approach is to ensure that the support we offer meets the needs of these communities. One example is SEDQ's support for the Youth Employment Service Foundation, called YES, an NPO that provides entrepreneurial support for English-speaking youth looking to start their own business. This year, renewal of SEDQ agreement for $2.84 million of non-repayable contribution for this organization under the EDI program. This helped YES to be there everywhere in all regions, including in Montreal region. Un autre exemple du financement de l'agence comporte le financement.
Another example, SEDQ has also funded the Corporation d'Employabilité et Développement Économique Communautaire, CEDEC, an organization that develops economic development initiatives and partnerships for entrepreneurs in Quebec's English-speaking community. SED has just renewed its support for SEDEC to the tune of $1.17 million over 4 years to help it mobilize communities around economic development issues, identify business development opportunities, and implement tools to guide and help communities initiate economic diversification projects. SED is convinced that economic development must be done for and by communities. That is why it's essential for us to listen to communities' needs. This is something that we do on an ongoing basis, both through our network of business offices and through bilateral meetings between SED senior management and OLMC representatives. As part of the Economic Development Initiative for Official Languages and in collaboration with Industry Science and Economic Development Canada, SED meets with OLMC representatives on a biennial basis for days of dialogue. The last one taking place on in October 5th, 2023. These consultations are very important meetings for us because they enable us to stay in touch with the issues and needs of entrepreneurs from OLMCs, and thus be able to adapt our interventions to the needs expressed. They also enable us to ensure that OLMCs are aware of the federal programs and services from which they could benefit. SMEs are the engine of the economy. For said, it's essential to support the high potential projects of Quebec's OLMCs through the Official Languages Economic Development Initiative. A nice example of this is Generation V Boat Building, a young company based in Gros-Îles, Magnan Islands, which thanks to an investment, we were able to develop an interesting project. I'll stop there, Mr. Chair. I have a few more pages, but I'll talk about it later. Yes, indeed, that's exactly what I said earlier. Through the questions that will be asked you, you will be able to continue your speech through those answers. The first round of questions will be 6-minute questions. Each party will have their turn. Starting off, we have the first Vice Chair of this committee, Mr. Godin. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I am happy to hear DEC Canada said for Canada for Quebec. I am a member representing Quebec here. My first question is for Mr. Nolan. Regarding operating budgets, ACOA's operating budgets, what is the total budgetary envelope dedicated to operational needs that includes loans, funding, and for Atlantic communities? Are you talking about the EDI? Wait a minute.
The economic.
When we talk about economic development, no. My question is the whole budget you receive from the federal government. You receive operational needs, financial assistance for loans and funding. What is the total envelope? And
data with me, so I have to get back to you specifically on that question.
But do you have a rough number?
On a regular basis, in the neighborhood of $220 million in grants and contributions that goes out directly to businesses and communities in general. In the neighborhood of...
Okay, je vous arrête là.
Okay, I'll stop you there. $222 million invested, generally speaking. Now, let's break that down by OLMCs in Atlantic Canada. Is it 50%, 25%, 75%? What's the figure here? I'm giving random figures here, but you can show us. I don't have the exact numbers. Do you have a rough estimate? I can say that with the EDI initiative, there was...
For 5 years. But in addition to that, we use our regular programming. So I can tell you, for example, in the last 18 months, as I mentioned in my notes, ACOA provided $211 million to Francophone entrepreneurs or Francophone communities. So in the last year.
Maintenant, est-ce que vous donnez...
Do you directly give money to businesses? I saw that you're working with other organizations. You're like the second intermediary here. There's ISED, there's ACOA, there are organizations, and then there are businesses. And there seems to be 3 intermediaries, 3 levels before the money gets to entrepreneurs. Is this the truth? We work mostly with businesses and communities. So what you're saying is that businesses can go directly ask for funding requests from you and all kinds of other funding. Yes. Okay. What is the success rate for granting that funding? There can be businesses that come to see you. What is the success rate that you have with regard to OLMCs? What is the success rate?
The targeted money that we have, the EDI funding that we have, $5.5 million, that specific money, we invested in 66 projects over 5 years, leveraged a total of $18.7 million, so getting funding from other partners as well. Assisted directly and indirectly over 500 businesses in the region. Our success rate generally with the agency is very high. Like our sort of write-off rate is less than 5%.
OK. Je vous arrête là-dessus. Est-ce que vous avez des
I'll stop you there. Do you have specific examples
au niveau des entreprises?
of success stories for businesses that you've helped? Is there a list of those success stories so that businesses in the Maritimes can access it?
Yeah.
Bien sûr. We have success stories on our website. We have success stories. But for example,
Vous les partagez.
You share these?
We share those with them. And
Je vous arrête, Monsieur Nolan.
OK,
Je me dirige au Québec.
I'll stop you right there. Mr. Perron, we're going to Quebec now. The same questions in terms of the budget. From what I understand, in Quebec, in OLMCs in Quebec, you invest in English language businesses, Inaudible. What does this represent as a share of investments? Our regular investment fund has $220 million per year. These are investments for nonprofits. We have specific programs for official languages. That's approximately $1.8 million a year in financial contributions, once again for nonprofits and businesses in OLMCs. Yes, in OLMCs, but businesses have access to the entire program. Businesses in OLMCs do indeed, and businesses across Quebec do as well. I'll ask you a question here. Could all English language businesses take the entire budgetary envelope for all of Quebec? In theory, it would be hard to get there. Our mandate is to work with all regions of Quebec, which means that we place a premium on being there for OLMCs. So we try to balance it out as a share. What could you say? Maybe just a rough estimate here. We said earlier $220 million was the figure. During the pandemic, there were special initiatives, but fundamentally speaking, it's approximately that time. On a 5-year period, we invested approximately $120 million. $120 million over that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perron. You can continue later on. Mr. Sanson, you have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to both of you for joining us today to help us better understand the situation on the ground. Daryl, I see you spell your name differently than mine, so there you have it. There are so many ways to write it. A couple of things very quickly. I would like to congratulate ACOA and the rural regions, and the economic development has been exceptional in the way you've been able to help businesses and communities. I was very young at one point, and my father was a municipal councillor, and he was working on incubator malls, and 5 years later he had to go to Ottawa and Quebec because the Acadian community never received funding. So I know that things have improved a lot since then. With that in mind, my question is, did I understand from the presentation earlier that we have a series of Francophone and Acadian, we have a bank for Francophone and Acadian enterprises? Do we know the region they're situated in? And thirdly, can we receive funding, a funding breakdown by province and region? Because we need to know how many businesses are in the region to get a portrait, because you said earlier that there's an office in Meteghan or Clare, but there isn't in Cape Breton. So, well, there isn't one in the Acadian region in any case. So I'd like to know what are the businesses in each region and province, and how much money was allocated compared to other Francophone businesses. Is it possible to get that information to the committee?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. We can certainly send that information to the clerk. But you know, as I mentioned, we service the whole region, comme j'ai mentionné dans mes remarques, and we've got offices.
As I mentioned earlier.
So I mentioned some of the specific communities where we do have offices, even in the place where we may not have a particular office. You mentioned the Francophone region in Cap-Breton, par exemple. Obviously, we have officers that would go to that region and serve that space.
Mais c'est correct parce que quand tu vas me donner les sommes d'argent.
When you give us the sums of funding given to each region, we'll see how well this work is done across the province. And the other thing that I would like to know is there a focus at ACOA on young entrepreneurs in the Atlantic region, English or French? Is there a stream for newcomers to entrepreneurship? What are you doing? Is that an objective at ACOA? Are you trying to bring in new blood and new businesses? Absolutely.
Colleagues from ICE had mentioned before, when you look at the makeup of OLMC entrepreneurs, certainly in our region, they're in rural communities. And rural communities are facing the same challenges that other businesses are. They're facing the challenge of le manque de main-d'œuvre,
labor shortages,
lack of immigration, all that sort of thing. So we have invested a lot in trying to keep young people in the region. And so we do things like, for example, in northeastern New Brunswick, we're doing a project in the school system, in the Francophone school system, to engage students in innovative ideas and innovative entrepreneurship practices to try to teach them how they could start businesses in their
Very good. Can you send us that too? What projects are out there in Atlantic Canada and in French communities where we have initiative for francophones? And my final question is there, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in Acadian communities around Atlantic Canada?
Comme tu as mentionné, on a
as you mentioned, we have the same challenges in our LMCs.
Atlantic Canada and all the rural communities. We have the challenges around labor. We have the challenges around access to capital. We have the challenges around accessing the skill set that they need. But the challenge is exponentially more difficult because they're doing that in their minority language. So that's why we have directed funding and why we have people there that can actually work with them on a case-by-case basis and face a client-centered approach so that they can actually figure out what is the exact need that business needs, because it varies business by business, and we can work with them to support whatever the specific problem that they might have.
So I guess my question is, the chair is telling me I'm getting close to my time. How long do you think it would take to get that information I'm asking for, which is identifying the regions which have francophones communities and how much money is being in projects that were approved in those communities across Atlantic Canada?
That will not take very long at all.
And the youth projects as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, not too long means a week, 2 weeks, a month?
Yeah,
before Christmas.
Before Christmas, yeah. This Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's better, but no later.
We can get that to you. I would say we should be able to get that to you in a week or so.
In a week or so. Well, I appreciate that, Daryl. That's why you carry the name Daryl.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanson. The next question comes to us from the second vice chair of the committee, Mr. Beaulieu. You have the floor. I wanted to know earlier, you said that overall there's about $120 million for businesses, Anglophone businesses? Mr. Chair, I'd like to clarify that point. We did a high level of assessment over a 5-year period because sometimes these things take a long time before they materialize. We had $120 million of investments in development projects that are tied to entrepreneurs identifying as Anglophone. That's $120 million over 5 years. That's a basic budget if you exclude special funding, which means that we're talking about $120 million of about $1 billion of investment in Anglophone businesses in Quebec. And that includes the $10.2 million of budget that is attributed to you every year? Yes. No, that goes to regular programming. It's a supplement. And the $10.2 million is a supplement for Anglophone entrepreneurs. Yes, and also organizations like the ones that I mentioned in my opening comments to support the community, to establish projects, to support Anglophone entrepreneurs and young Anglophone entrepreneurs. We have an equivalent that serves the general population, but we also have one that deals specifically with the Anglophone community to ensure that the service is available and very active in communities. A question we know since 2020 and in the new legislation, the government recognizes that Francophones in Quebec are a minority in Canada and in North America, and that the government has a responsibility to protect French in Quebec. Within the $10.2 million for official OLMCs in the action plan for 2023-2028, is there anything set out for Francophones in Quebec? In the funding that comes from the CED, it's exclusively directed to OLMCs, so the Anglophone community in Quebec. The programs and services of the CED are available to everyone. Yes, but there's already funding for Anglophones. For any business can come from Development Canada, but there's preferential funding for Anglophones, if you will, because they're supposedly an OLMC. Additional funding allowed us to add to our service offerings to ensure that these services reach these communities. Yes, I'm not shooting the messenger. I'd just like to know, you said that you are consulting representatives of Anglophone communities in Quebec. Can we know which ones? The CDEC, which I mentioned earlier, I think you heard from them recently to find out how things are working. Is there QCGen? Are there other groups that you were... Other than CDEC, I can come back to you with that information. I'm not aware of all of the discussions. Can you give us concrete examples of projects that you are funding? And before you respond, since it's public funds that subsidizes businesses, do we have access to that information, to the projects that are subsidized? Like all projects that receive funding, we regularly post the list of contributions publicly. You won't necessarily find in that information the breakdown of all of the information, but you'll know that a business of such and such a name received this much. But can we contact them to find out about projects? Well, we do announcements like our colleagues from ACOA. We have a lot of information on these projects that are available online, so we could give you an overview if you're interested and direct you to relevant sources. Can you give me a few concrete examples? Well, earlier I was trying to tell you about, in my introduction, about a project in the Magdalen Islands of a company that builds ship hulls. So it's creating jobs in the Magdalen Islands, which is a project that comes from a group of Anglophone entrepreneurs. And we have a few of those in Quebec. Are there any in Montreal as well? Oh, I would say so, but I don't know off. In Westmount? Well, I can provide it to the analyst if you like. Well, I'd like to know, I also noticed in the public accounts there are subsidies of under $100,000. We can't know who it goes to, or the names of the subsidies aren't included. So there's a considerable proportion of this type of investment for economic development. Can you tell us a little bit about how we could get access to that information? Well, if you're asking, if you submit an ATIP, we would respond. If you have anything specific today, I'm ready to take questions. So are they given to individuals? It's normally businesses. We have economic advisors that do assessments based on the program criteria, and they determine whether it contributes to improving the economic position of the regions in Quebec. Does it meet our program criteria? Normally, they're innovating businesses, that they have the growth potential, that are export-driven. Our programs are also tailored to the economic realities of the regions. Thank you very much, Mr. Perron.
Actually, I would really love to sort of, I guess, keep going in that vein. You were talking about how you assess those factors that allow for you both to invest in the businesses that you do. So, in terms of that, like how you make those decisions, I assume that you take into account. You were talking about youth, the age of the owners, how many they employ. I would imagine as well, women. How they bring in people from different communities in terms of those immigration numbers of attracting new immigrants to those businesses. Can you talk about that more, I guess?
Yeah.
Specify it?
Yeah. So we don't start by looking at who the person is or the entrepreneur is. We start by looking at the project, the nature of the project, its value, its alignment with the program standards. We do invest, though, a fair level of effort to help entrepreneurs from diverse groups to join and use and take advantage of the program. So the initial assessment is really about the business value of the project or the community development potential that this project has, whether it's in tourism or it's industrial manufacture. We look at the business opportunity in there, and we move. But we do invest on the ongoing basis to try to attract new entrepreneurs and support new entrepreneurs. So we have a stream on diversity, clearly, and we monitor our numbers to see if we are doing better. Because if we invest time and energy to try to support entrepreneurs from diverse groups, we want to see them coming and taking advantage of these programs over time. And the numbers are interesting to follow. And official language is one of the dimensions that we are often tracking. So it's why I have a sense of how much we have invested over the last 5 years into businesses led by Anglophone, for example, in Quebec. The profile is important. Do we have an impact with everybody in all regions, in all sectors? We are looking at these stats, yes.
So you look at the entrepreneur themselves, but do you look at their workforce as well?
The level of employment related to a project will be interesting and see if there is potential for increased employment, but it's not necessarily the sole factor.
No, but it's one of many.
Sometime in productivity, for example, we are going to invest in business that will not create more jobs, but at the end, that will be stronger on the market, will maybe have a chance to grow, export, or survive, because there is competition coming from other countries as well. So productivity is a big angle that we are going to go. So it doesn't necessarily create new job in all instances, but sometimes it's going to solidify and increase the market for these enterprises that will be more productive over time.
Okay. Obviously, in terms of, like you were talking about, long-term jobs, that viability, a lot of times in terms of, I would be considered or concerned too about how those entrepreneurs use those funds and how that translates to those that they employ as well, in terms of the viability of communities. That's very much based on good-paying, unionized jobs. Do you look at that as well? How do you value that?
In fact, part of the business assessment, it's also the management of these enterprises and these businesses. So our advisor will also work, for example, on subjects like greening, cybersecurity, management, workforce, diversity and inclusion, and make sure that the business are aware of these important dimensions for their success in the future. You were looking at results. Most of the funding we provide to small, medium-sized enterprises is repeatable contribution. So our ability to recoup that money in the future is also one indicator that the project has been a success, because the business have been able to make enough money to pay back government for the contribution we have made earlier in the process.
It's interesting you speak about that. Obviously, a lot of the businesses existing throughout COVID were hit very, very hard. Many of them received CEBA loans, and now they're being forced to pay that back. Many can't. Are you using your data, and are you seeing that need greater on your end to try and make up for what they're suffering through, what these businesses are suffering through because of the end of the loan forgiveness from the CEBA?
Yeah, this is what we call special initiative. So it's a different group of entrepreneurs that we have worked with during that period. So I have a different program and people that work with those who have benefited from this kind of support. We are tracking that really carefully, and recently there was some announcement to postpone or delay some payment period. So we are working really close with our partners to make sure we support them, and of course, we want them to succeed. But it's a different program, so unfortunately I was not really prepared to talk to you about that today.
30 seconds.
Well, I mean, all my questions were answered by Mr. Sonny.
Sorry,
Mr.
Sonny. Go there.
But they did apply to you as
Same.
well.
Yeah. We operate in very similar ways, you know, in terms of what Mr. Perron described, in terms of our due diligence process, in terms of how we work with businesses and look at what the project is giving from a holistic perspective. You know, is it helping grow the company? Is it helping grow employment where that's appropriate, or improve productivity where that's what the objective is? One thing I would add is you had talked about the overall community and the impact on the community. I think both of our agencies have a separate suite of programs that are geared directly towards community development. So helping the communities, the municipalities themselves in terms of the supporting economic infrastructure as well as the business.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Thank you, Mrs. Mathesons. Les prochaines questions. Next question. Elton, for 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for coming here today. The documentation that we have is that for the next 5 years is that the allocation is $10.2 million for the CED, okay, in Quebec, and then $6.2 million for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. So, a couple questions. One is that primarily just going to administration, or is that being dispersed? Like, what is that money for? I know this has been asked, different ways, but we want to know what is that, and is it primarily operating funds? Just this budgeted amount right here, because it's actually been the same amount. It's not new. It's been consistent over the past quite a few years. So obviously, it's not just going forward, but you can tell us how it's been used in the past, specifically that money.
You took most of the last question, so I guess it's my. As I mentioned, as you mentioned, the $6.2 million in our case, it is almost entirely going out to communities, to businesses, to help support the priorities of the Economic Development Initiative. So to help businesses to grow, to help support tourism, to help communities. I think in our case, it's less than $500,000 that goes to administration. So the vast majority of it goes right out the door to businesses and communities. So it would help projects like some of those that I mentioned in my remarks, things like, helping attract and retain young French-speaking immigrants in Newfoundland and Labrador with Horizon Terre-Neuve and Labrador. It's with helping support.
If I can
businesses.
that's
Sure.
right. If I can just, because of limited time. Now you said 500,000, but that would per year, correct? That's not over the entire 5 years. That's over the entire 5 years. Okay, so 100,000. And is this your sole basically pot of administrative of money? You mentioned 500,000. Is that all that you have? That sounds like one, maybe two positions. Is there other sort of government finances that you received to also that you used to support your program in operating?
So that's in terms of delivering on the the $6.2 million, the sort of say 5.5 that goes out or give or take, that goes out the door to businesses. When we get that money from the center, from Treasury Board and Finance, it specifically says this is the amount of money that's allocated to allow for the operations and delivery of that program. So it's proportionally divided that way. That's what we use to deliver that portion of the program.
Okay, but this is not the only program that you do. You have other programs too, or is this you're strictly focused on this? Because I know.
Oh, you mean in general, what
Yes.
COA does? No, of course not. We as I mentioned, we've got in the neighborhood of $220 million of grants and contribution that goes out, and somewhere in the neighborhood of I have to get the exact figure in terms of how much is operating costs, but no, it's not the only amount.
Yeah, so would that include a Black Entrepreneurship Initiative and the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative too?
Yeah, so we
have
have our regular programming, such as the that I mentioned, our REGI programming, our business development programming, our innovation Communities Fund, which is our core programming. Then we have special initiatives like the ones you mentioned, the Black Business, Black Entrepreneurship Strategy Program, Women Business Programming. We have tourism programming. That's special initiatives that are targeted over and above what our core programming is.
Okay, I'm going to assume that's the same answer. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Perrault?
Mr. Chair, I would maybe just add one thing. The regional development agencies are a nice vehicle to implement smaller initiatives because we rely on a common infrastructure to be able to deliver these. So if we were an organization created to deliver this $10.2 million over 5 years, our probably administrative costs will be terrible because you need to stand up a structure. But since we are already in that business of supporting community organization and funding community organization, this is an addition that makes us, I would say, pretty lean.
Thank you very much. The concern that we have is obviously being top-heavy bureaucracy, and so we want to make sure that it is getting targeted. You're measuring, you're seeing results. It's not being wasted. We're seeing, with the Arrive Canada, with the Green Slush Fund, all these sort of things that's made conservatives extremely nervous when we're putting outline things. And so, those details are important. So if you could actually send, or maybe it's already available, exactly what your administrative costs are, all sources, and and what you're providing.
Thank you.
In services also would be helpful.
Thank
you.
So
we can we can support or just examine further.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton. Thank you. Thank you. Monsieur Lauzon, à vous la parole pour.
Mr. Lauzon, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank and welcome the witnesses here tonight, Mr. Nolan and Mr. Perron. Mr. Perron, I would like to follow up on devitalized regions. There were evaluation criteria for these regions. Are most of these regions remote and in rural areas? Can you speak a bit more about this? Chair, we use the RCM structure and to assess this with the methodology and statistics. We look at regions that have the lowest economic development potential. We then look at these regions a bit differently than when we receive projects. When we receive projects from urban centers or regions with a greater potential, we might not consider them as actively. But when it comes to regions with less potential in the short term, we are much more open to working on these regions and helping them. This is especially true when it comes to tourism and agri-food in regions, or maybe in other kind of regions. We could support projects that would make the region more attractive for further economic development. Yes, there are some of these that are located in rural areas, Chair. You actually made me think of a question I could ask you on agri-tourism. Or maybe tourism businesses as a whole. Some of them are seasonal. Are there criteria that would help seasonal businesses? That's a very good question. Our regular programming has rather strict criteria. I'll explain myself. These criteria are strict because we're looking for long-term economic activity. But for some of the ones that we saw in the last few years, we can help with smaller projects. As the committee member mentioned, yes, these projects could include seasonal businesses, especially if it is added value for the tourism potential of a region. We helped out with accommodation in some sectors. There was very little supply, and we helped in order to get a better potential in the medium to long term. I had the opportunity of traveling across Canada. I met with people across many communities and businesses as well, especially in OLMCs. Often people say that they learn this by themselves. They learn it from maybe word of mouth. What tools do you have? What communications tools do you have to help reach these businesses that are often in OLMCs? They often feel isolated and they do not instinctively seek out resources by themselves. Do you have any communications strategies to reach out to these businesses? I would say we have a presence in 12 regional offices. We have extremely competent staff. We have also a socioeconomic ecosystem that we finance. CDEC is one of them. Project YES is another. But there are also economic development businesses across communities, and we try to be present across all these communities. They often work with very, very small businesses, and they will help small businesses grow when they need that support and when the time comes. We often work with partners. People know us. They send us relevant files, and it is important for our mandate to be able to do this in both official languages. Anglophone businesses in Quebec and Francophone businesses in Quebec need to know us both, and that is why it's important to invest in the ecosystem. The official languages program we talked about has $10.2 million over 5 years, and that helps to increase supply to help that people in English communities across the regions of Quebec get to better know us and know that these programs are accessible. We need to help businesses succeed in Quebec and Canada, of course. Thank you, gentlemen. 2.5 minutes for Mr. Baudier. You may have the floor. Thank you, Chair. If I understand this correctly, you distribute most of these funding to businesses. You mentioned 8.7 million. You spoke of 1.7 million to CDEC. Are there other organizations that serve as intermediaries? You said yes in Quebec. That's right. Yep. Chair, the two main recipients organizations are CDEC and YES. These are 4 OLMCs in Quebec. However, most of the organizations we fund have a requirement to offer services and provide services in both official languages. It's often both. In this case, it's specialized. How do you ensure that make sure that these businesses are English language businesses? Chair, maybe if I can just clarify something. In the $10.2 million, this is supposed to be money for English-owned businesses. What kind of criteria do you use? Because some people could say, hey, I could say I'm an English business and get that money. What kind of verifications do you do? What kind of checks do you do for these organizations? People self-identify while using our services. Both English-speaking and French-speaking entrepreneurs have access to our programs, to our regular programs. It doesn't really make a difference. It does allow us to know whether our programs are accessible or used by which community. If I'm looking at the amounts that you gave earlier, I can see the following. It's 120 million over 5 years, etc. I did the math, and it's approximately 16% a year that goes to the English side. Chair, I think it's more in the realm of 10%. I'm talking about that $120 million over 5 years. That's 20-ish million a year. I'll go back and do the math, but indeed, yes. Thank you, Mr. Baudier. Thank you, Mr. Perron. Another 2.5 minutes for Ms. Matheson.
Thank you. So there's been a lot of talk about, of course, the labor shortages and the stress that puts on businesses and so on. And I think I'll just ask my questions of Mr. Nolan, considering you got the first round entirely. So that Francophone immigration, and specifically ensuring that we're targeting or we're trying to attract more people to those jobs. How does ACOA coordinate or work with the Francophone Immigration Center in Dieppe?
So that's a relatively new organization, so we're just starting a relationship with them. But I take a step back in terms of talking about what we do in terms of Francophone immigration. I'd say, first of all, one of the biggest initiatives we had in Atlantic Canada was the Atlantic Immigration Partnership. It's been around for about 4 or 5 years. And what we did in that is we had about 8 of our staff throughout the region assigned specifically to support the work that our colleagues at IRCC were doing. So we went out to businesses, we talked to the businesses to tell them there's this great new initiative that you can use to help support, to help attract new immigrants to your business, including in our Francophone minority communities. Okay, so we work directly with them. I'd say in addition to that, we've got a number of specific projects to help our Francophone businesses attract immigrants. So starting from specific projects that we have with our Francophone universities to help get those students or recent graduates into businesses and to get them to stay in the region, to help educate all of our businesses, but in this case particularly our Francophone businesses, on what it means to navigate the immigration system, what it means to have an immigrant come and work in your company. As you know, when an immigrant comes, it's not just about having a person that can turn the screwdriver. It's about bringing the whole person and their family and having an inclusive and a diversified work environment. So we provide the kind of training with them. We provide the supports to them to understand what it takes to go through that process.
So, because one of the past conversations in this committee apparently was that the president of the Acadian Society of New Brunswick said they never had a relationship with that immigration center in Dieppe. So I'm curious. You said it's new.
Yeah, it's
so
relatively
how
new.
are you developing and what are your future plans?
So
in 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds, we're going to just have work with them in close conversations and figure out what is the best way we can work with them. And our number one objective is to think about what is it that the businesses and the communities need.
So that center hasn't been fully defined yet.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
I can't
guys.
speak for them, but in terms of our relationship, no. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan, Mrs. Madsen. Thank you. It's really quick. We have time for 2 other questions of 2 minutes and a half. So we'll start. On va commencer avec Monsieur Généreux. À vous la parole, Monsieur Généreux.
Start off with Mr. Généreux. You have the floor for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I just would like to say that I was a member of and client of CED Canada. I wanted to say that before I ask my question. Inaudible. I just wanted to know, Mr. Perron, and thank you for being here. The interpreter would request that the microphone be raised. The sound quality is insufficient for allowing interpretation.
C'est-à-dire les femmes, les autochtones, etc. Puis les LGBTQ, est-ce que vous êtes en mesure de déterminer...
Sorry to interrupt. The interpreter said that they cannot pick up your sound.
Okay, pardon. Alors, excusez-moi.
Thank you.
Je vais recommencer ton temps pour 15 secondes.
Oui, c'est bon. Est-ce que vous êtes en mesure...
I'll restart your time. Are you able to give us a breakdown of the sums that went to those people? Do you have statistics? Chair, this is probably a question that we'll have to get back to you on. If you want a diversity profile for investments, I think that we could give you a profile in the next few weeks. I did the math a little bit while ago. You said 10 million over 5 years, 1.6 million for SEDEC, 1.6 and 1.3, is that correct? What is the amount for... SEDEC receives $1.17 million over 4 years. Oh, it's not for a year, it's over 4 years. Okay. Yeah, these are long-term agreements to help these businesses stabilize their operations and do better work on the ground. In the Montreal area, there were others, yes, but both organizations have mandates that affect various, that spread out across various regions. You spoke about Gaspésie earlier. There are communities, yes, Chair, they're not necessarily used, these organizations, systematically. There are many businesses that come to EDC for funding. There are no doors that are closed to them. When it comes to the percentage of what is processed by these organizations are in minority communities. If you compare that with Canada, do you have a kind of a breakdown of the percentage? In 10 seconds, there is a lot. Their role is that of a supporting role. They don't provide funding. Thank you very much. We're going to close off with 2.5 minutes for Mr. Sampson. You have the floor. Thank you. Mr. Nolan, I will continue my line of questioning with you. I know there is a relationship between post-secondary Francophone institutions and ACOA. Is there, throughout the Atlantic regions, links between French schools and ACOA? I'll explain myself. Communities, ACOA plays a role in there are communities that play big roles in these community centers. Do they receive support from ACOA?
So in terms of lorsqu'on parle des écoles secondaires, we partnerships and projects that we support, for example, with Collège Communautaire de Nouveau-Brunswick, where they have, I'm not a scientist, but they have a molding technology there, and we've helped support them to how they can use their technology and their processes in local businesses to help them. So it's growing innovation and it's growing local businesses. We also, as I mentioned previously, have a number of projects throughout all of the region helping students that are in our Francophone institutions in all 4 provinces.
Okay, donc, même question.
So same question, over to you. Could we have a list? Because I saw that in Nova Scotia there are 2 French schools and they feel very isolated because people leave the region. Is it possible to get a list of the regions where Atlantic regions Francophone schools have received funding for projects and what type of projects these are?
Okay. Moi, j'ai pas mal une liste.
I have a list here. Okay, so maybe the next 2 weeks, yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sanson. Thank you, Mr. Perron and Mr. Nolan. It's really interesting to see what goes on the ground. Usually I look up various training, but usually you can find it. What is difficult, I would say, and maybe Mr. Nolan, you can... and you said it earlier with Mr. Sanson's questions. You said that it's actually what I was saying is that it's difficult to seeing this information broken down by territory and by region. It's hard to see which region is expecting what kind of money for what kind of thing. Before closing today, I would just like to say that during the next meeting, we will be starting the report on Francophone immigration in Canada. They're to review it, indeed. So adjourned? Yes, adjourned. Thank you, all witnesses.